It has been 20 years since the release of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater for the PlayStation 2. I first entered the franchise when I picked up a PS2 in 2003 and played through Metal Gear Solid. After completing it a few times, I picked up Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance on the Xbox to continue the story. Being thoroughly captivated, I watched and read any preview of the upcoming third game in the series I could find. I managed to save up enough cash to pick it up and did so on a family Thanksgiving trip a week after the game launched. Unfortunately, I didn't take my PS2 on that trip, so the game taunted me for a few days before we finally drove home and I could play it. I played the whole game in a single sitting that started around 10 or 11 PM, which isn't a small feat given how long it is with all the cutscenes. The experience of that first playthrough is a fond memory, and even today Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of my top 10 favorite games of all time. Metal Gear Solid 3 tells us the story of Naked Snake and his rise to becoming the legendary soldier Big Boss before the fateful events at Outer Heaven and Zanzibar Land. Snake must prove the United States' innocence after a nuclear bomb is detonated within Russia by a rogue military group. With numerous fateful encounters and betrayals, the story of Metal Gear Solid 3 tells a more in-depth and emotional tale than what the series has done previously while filling in numerous gaps found within the plot of Metal Gear Solid 2. The use of radio conversations and cinematics convey the story well, but in typical Metal Gear fashion, they dominate a majority of the playtime your first time through. Set in 1964, Metal Gear Solid 3 takes place during the height of the Cold War, and political tensions play a crucial role throughout the game, and you hear about it frequently. You also can't help but notice the James Bond-esque inspirations at play. The Snake Eater theme honestly sets the tone for it so well. Metal Gear Solid 3 builds upon the gameplay foundation established with Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 while offering fresh takes on the series' established gameplay. Stealth is the key element of any Metal Gear Solid title, and Metal Gear Solid 3 adds new ways to remain hidden with a new camo index feature. By equipping uniform and face paint options found throughout the game, your camo index will rise, making you harder to spot. The new jungle setting also offers ample places to hide with patches of grass and fallen trees mixed with the occasional structures. Rivers, mountains, and a large base are also present to mix up gameplay scenarios. The Soliton radar from the previous two Metal Gear Solid games, which would give players the exact location and sight cones of enemies, has been removed. Instead, players are tasked with completing their mission by better observing and using their surroundings to get around or incapacitate enemies. A few gadgets are present to help locate enemies and animals in the jungle environment. These utilize a battery system that keeps them from being constant use items. If discovered, an alert mode triggers that will have you attacked until either you die, kill all the enemies in the area, or manage to escape detection long enough to find a hiding place for the remainder of the alert phase. You can also fake your death with a new fake death pill to trick enemies into leaving you alone. While the gunplay found within Metal Gear Solid 3 hasn't changed much from Metal Gear Solid 2, far more weapons can be found within the newer game. Some guns can be silenced to keep them from alerting enemies, while others can't and will instantly trigger an alarm if used in the wrong scenario. Silencers aren't unlimited resources like in Metal Gear Solid 2, making their use more strategic. If you get into a situation where you can't just sneak around an enemy, and you used up your silencers in an earlier area, be prepared for a fight. Additional silencers for supported weapons can be found throughout the game. If playing on the very easy difficulty, you get access to the Easy Gun, which has an unlimited use silencer, making it much easier for new players to progress in total stealth. Explosives can also be found to take out enemies or blow up supply depots. The latter is a particularly cool touch, as it will make it so enemies have less stamina and as a result less accuracy, or have only one mag of ammo for their primary weapons depending on the surrounding depots. Other weapons and equipment like a knockout gas cigarette bring more fun to the weapons pool and make the game further feel like a Bond movie. Close Quarters Combat, CQC, is the biggest overhaul for the combat system found within Metal Gear Solid 3. Instead of a 3-hit punch-kick combo found in past games, several new hand-to-hand attacks have been added, with variations depending on the currently equipped weapon. One-handed weapons will typically bear the CQC indicator, meaning they can be equipped and use every feature the new system offers. While the base attack combo is similar to what came before, you can now sneak up on enemies and grab them. Once you have an enemy at your mercy, you can either interrogate them for information, slit their throats, or knock them unconscious. Not every enemy has something useful to say, while others may divulge a nice secret. You can quickly knock out enemies while grabbing them by holding a direction on your analog stick as you do so. Two-handed weapons have a slower physical attack and don't allow for the capturing of enemies. You can also just equip a knife and quickly slash at enemies if desired. In addition to the new CQC systems, Metal Gear Solid 3 introduces new survival mechanics into the game that alter the player's experience. A stamina meter can be found beneath Snake's life bar, and it will constantly decrease as you play. The amount of equipped weapons and items further dictates how quickly your stamina bar will decrease, so pack light for the best results. With a low stamina bar, your aiming is negatively impacted, and your stomach growling can potentially alert enemies to your position. By hunting down food in the jungle or finding rations in enemy buildings, you can replenish or reduce the stamina bar. The food you kill by lethal means will eventually go bad, making it poisonous to eat. But like every other piece of equipment in Metal Gear Solid 3, bad food can be used to debilitate enemies, and for one boss fight in particular, gives you an easy way to take them down faster. Food captured by non-lethal means will always stay fresh until ready to be consumed. Live food can also be used to distract enemies. Throwing snakes at enemy soldiers never gets old. Injuries are another area that has been expanded upon. Every bullet or knife wound you take can potentially leave you with an injury that will either need to be treated, or your max health can be negatively impacted. Burns from explosives or other sources, or broken bones caused by falling from a greater than normal height will have a similar result. Leeches can impact your stamina gauge, draining it faster than normal until they are removed. Another cool status effect comes from being hit with tranquilizer darts that will make you fall asleep unless quickly removed. All injuries are treated in the pause menu, with numerous medicines and items used to restore your status. Most things are single use, requiring you to find replacements as the game progresses. Almost every injury will heal over time if your medical supplies are out, but you will need to live with a health deficit as a trade-off. Or, if you are done playing for the day, saving the game and turning it off will have Snake sleep, which will regenerate stamina and health and cure injuries depending on the amount of time that passes on the system's clock. As with past Metal Gear games, Metal Gear Solid 3 has numerous boss fights for players to experience and overcome. Bosses can be taken out by lethal and non-lethal means as introduced in Metal Gear Solid 2. By using non-lethal means, players will gain access to special camos. Some bosses can also be defeated early in a playthrough, or by alternative means like setting the PS2 system clock ahead a week, or drowning yourself. The bosses in Metal Gear Solid 3 are unique and iconic, and include several of my favorites from the entire franchise. Seeing a young Ocelot being bested and inspired by Snake is an incredible touch, since players have known him as a much older adversary since Metal Gear Solid 1. But the odd B attacks of the Pain, the fierce cloak and poison tactics, the end sniper battle, and the furious flaming rage are all highlights of a playthrough. One of the more unique fights is the Sorrow, who will make you regret any kill you have made throughout your playthrough. The final battles with Volgin and his Shagohod might be one of my all-time favorite gaming memories. The final battle against the boss also conveys a ton of emotion, and what I think makes MGS3 such a fan favorite. The audio work in Metal Gear Solid 3 is a masterclass. The jungle environment is filled with tons of background noise, conveying the life found within. The crunching of grass from any animals or soldiers quickly draws your attention to assess if it's from a foe. Gunfire and flame effects have a realistic pop, leading to a heightened sense of realism. The music fits the scenes, and some of my favorite tracks of the franchise are found in MGS3, like Battle in the Base. But the true peak of MGS3's sound work comes from the voice work. The emotion conveyed by the cast at various points of the story is incredibly well done. Even campy dialogue about old movies or recharging batteries manages to not take you out of the experience and provides moments of brevity. David Hayter reprises the role of Snake and does a fantastic job throughout the story. The supporting cast has more impact compared to previous games, but unfortunately can still be mostly skipped or missed. Metal Gear Solid 3 pushes the PS2 extremely hard with its nicely modeled environments. The grass is nicely animated and dense, with any additional structures or trees fitting nicely into the play area. Snake and enemies have good models, and the way they can blend into environments adds to the challenge. The texture work is decent enough and conveys what everything is at a glance, but it isn't the best the PS2 has to offer. MGS3 was designed to run at 30 FPS, and overall it does a good job of maintaining that frame rate, with dips only occurring during intense boss fights or some cutscenes. The original 2004 release of the game features a fixed camera perspective that helps with overall performance. The release of Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence in March 2006 for North America brought with it a player-controlled camera. This new camera completely changes the way the game plays for the better, but it does come at the expense of more performance dips over the original fixed angles. With numerous difficulties and different styles of play, Metal Gear Solid 3 has a lot to entice players into multiple playthroughs. Finding different radio calls and hidden cutscene moments also provide more variation to a playthrough. Hunting down every last keratin frog is yet another thing completionists will want to accomplish to finally unlock the series' signature stealth camo. An additional minigame, Snake vs. Monkey, based on Ape Escape, is also available and offers several levels of monkey capturing goodness. For fans of Metal Gear Online, which was introduced in the 2006 release of Subsistence, servers have been fully restored and there is a dedicated fanbase that still plays it today. Metal Gear Solid 3 has been blessed with numerous re-releases since 2004 to keep it relevant and obtainable for modern audiences. The Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, released in 2011 for the PS3 and Xbox 360, gives the Subsistence version of the game a widescreen 720p resolution and 60 FPS gameplay. A version of the game for the PlayStation Vita was also released, with a progressive widescreen presentation that matched the PS2's original resolution. The 360 and Vita versions of the game did away with pressure-sensitive controls, making it far more precise. On Vita, some control elements are mapped to the touchpads, which I find less ideal. The HD versions of the game have recently seen another release as part of the 2023 Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1 across PS4, PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. Unfortunately, all the HD releases are missing the Snake vs. Monkey minigame and the nightmare sequence found in the PS2 original. A full remaster of the game dubbed Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is planned for release in 2025. It is a shame it missed the game's 20th anniversary. The most unique re-release of Metal Gear Solid 3 was the 2012 3DS release. This version of the game uses the 3DS's 3D functionality during play to bring you into the action while not using first-person aiming. A new crouch-walk mechanic introduced in Metal Gear Solid 4 was also added to the game, providing an excellent quality of life improvement over the standard crawl or upright movement found in every other version. The ability to use the 3DS camera to create custom camos and a new selectable third-person aiming system is also present. Using the 3DS touchscreen makes inventory and camo selections far more streamlined, but it still takes you to a submenu to access. Unfortunately, this version is hampered by poor controls on original 3DS systems, but can be overcome with the Circle Pad Pro. New 3DS users have better controls thanks to the extra shoulder buttons and built-in C-Stick. The biggest issue with the game is its 20 FPS frame rate cap and unstable performance that often sees frame rates dip into the low teens. With a modded new 3DS system, you can run the game at new 3DS clock speeds to better maintain its 20 FPS cap, or even use cheats to unlock it to 30 FPS with dips in demanding scenes. While far from perfect, the 3DS version is one of my favorite ways to play Metal Gear Solid 3. The biggest complaint that I can levy against Metal Gear Solid 3 is its constant use of menus. Needing to change camos can happen frequently, and it requires a lot of menuing to accomplish efficiently. Healing, eating, and changing out weapons and equipment require yet more menuing. Using the radio? Yep, another menu. My next complaint comes near the end of the game with an escort sequence that dramatically slows down the final chapter in an unpleasant way. There is a good sense of dread present during this sequence that almost makes up for it though. And for one final nitpick, the yellow filter heavily featured throughout the game can be a bit of an eyesore. For anyone who gets annoyed by constant exposition, Metal Gear Solid 3 continues the typical Metal Gear trend of having more dialogue than gameplay. The original 2004 release has also been rendered obsolete by the release of Subsistence in 2006. As far as prequels go, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is up there as one of the best across any medium. We get a fantastic story about the rise of a legendary soldier before his fall from grace, filled with numerous moments of trust and betrayal. Combat has been greatly improved over previous games in the series, and new survival aspects are neat despite requiring excessive menu navigation. Boss fights remain some of the best of the series, with unique aspects to each. Combined with great sound work and graphics that make full use of everything the PS2 had to offer, Metal Gear Solid 3 is as standout a title today as it was 20 years ago. Unfortunately for the 2004 original, a better version was released in 2006 that is better in practically every way. If you have yet to play Metal Gear Solid 3, it is an absolute must-play, but just make sure to do so with one of the Subsistence versions for the best time. So another happy 20th anniversary to Metal Gear Solid 3, and again, if you have not played this game over the last 20 years somehow, maybe you're too young or it's just never interested you, highly recommend doing so. And again, my two favorite versions of the game are the original Subsistence for PS2, and oddly enough, the 3DS version despite its awful frame rate. But to date, the PS2 version is the only version that is actually content complete with everything that the game originally included, so it's a really good version to play, and it still holds up so well today. Now, even though this video was entirely based on the 2004 version, it's still a good game. Wouldn't recommend it over Subsistence, though. New camera makes such a big deal. But thank you all for watching today's video. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I hope you check out Metal Gear Solid 3. But I'm going to go ahead and call it here for this one. So the usual favors here at the end, thumbs up, thumbs down, depending on how much you like this video, sub button, notification bell, so you can see when new videos go live on the channel, and if you'd like to help support us to bring more content just like this to all of you, be sure to check out that join button here on YouTube, or the Patreon link in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, as every little bit helps. Big thank you to all of our current backers, you're incredible, thank you so much for all you do. Until next time, my wonderful internet peeps, you all stay awesome, keep on gaming, and we'll see you back next video.